Katana, the soul of the samurai. Myths and truths. The title of this article is not just meaningless pathos to attract readers. The katana was indeed called the soul of the samurai during the Tokugawa shogunate of the Edo period. Paired with wakizashi, a shorter blade on his belt, it became a samurai's personal fencing and status weapon, a confirmation of his significant social position, similar to the rapier and sword in Europe. Remember the Three Musketeers and their invariable swords? To us, the people of Europe and the West, the image of an invincible samurai with a katana came through Oriental movies and animation, anime. As a result of merciless artistic embellishment in our minds, formed a huge number of myths about this weapon, which we will try to debunk at least a little and open the veil of truth in this article. Myth 1. Katana is a sword. In fact, this is a half-myth, half-truth. By standards, a katana is a saber. This is evidenced by the curvature of the blade and unilateral sharpening. However, the Japanese position the katana as a sword due to the fact that it is used primarily for slashing and stabbing, while the saber is used for chopping. The hilt runs in the plane of the blade, not curved. The weight of a katana is comparable to that of a sword, while a saber and other weapons are lighter. A katana can be wielded with one or two hands, which is impossible with a saber. In fact, a katana is a Japanese edged weapon with a long, slightly bent, sharpened on one side blade, consisting of several layers of steel of different hardness, and a short wooden hilt in comparison. The katana was intended for slashing blows, but with skillful wielding it could also stab an opponent. The total length of the katana, together with the hilt, is 3 foot. The length of the blade is 2 foot. Remember the red ribbon hanging beautifully from the hilt of the katana in the movies? This is a historically accurate fact. Silk cloth was actually wrapped around the hilt, and underneath, shark skin or stingray skin, for a more comfortable grip. The weight of the katana was usually 750 to 1000 G, which is quite a decent weight for a cold weapon, and such techniques were necessary to comfortably hold the weapon even in one hand. The accepted way of carrying a katana was to carry it on the left side of the body in a scabbard, laid behind the belt, obi, blade up. When entering a house, the samurai took out the katana from behind his belt, in case of possible conflicts held the sword in the left hand in a state of combat readiness, and as a sign of trust and peace, in the right. In case there was no frequent need to use the sword, it was kept at home in a mounting made of untreated magnolia wood to protect the steel from corrosion. Myth 2. The katana is the oldest weapon that has belonged to the samurai for centuries. Before the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate, that is, until the late 14th, early 15th century, the main weapon of the samurai was not a sword at all, but a bow. Yes, the samurai was first of all a mounted archer, because the Japanese state and military elite was of North Korean origin and closely related to the steppe people, Manchus, Jurchens, and other distant relatives of the Mongols. In the field, however, the warrior used a spear or tati, a longer sword than the katana. The katana replaced the tati in the early 15th century, but even in its heyday it was by no means considered the most perfect weapon, because... Myth 3. Katana, the absolute pinnacle of blacksmithing in the history of mankind. Accordingly, it is an unrivaled weapon that can cut even a tank. This opinion was formed under the influence of romanticization of the Far and Middle East during the period of popularization of Japanese culture and is based on the allegedly special technique of making katanas, multi-layer forging. Indeed, Japanese blacksmiths used to produce katanas of different hardness of steel varieties, which were interspersed with each other in a specific way, as well as folded many times, flattened with a hammer, folded, flattened again, folded again. Thus, hard steel provided the blade sharpness for a long time, and soft steel allowed it not to break under dynamic loads. The ways of combining the steels varied. In total, there were about 10 variants. For example, sometimes hard steel was placed outside and soft steel in the core of the blade, and sometimes vice versa. However, this method of forging iron was known much earlier and was used by the ancient Celts and Romans. Cold weapons of the early Middle Ages, not only in the East but also in Europe and the West, in general are characterized by extreme craftsmanship and durability, so the opinion about the apparent superiority of Japanese katanas over other swords is nothing more than a myth. So, what was it really like? In fact, and history confirms it, there was quite little iron on the Japanese islands, and what there was of rather poor quality. The technology of repeated folding and forging of iron was dictated by these conditions. By the way, not only katanas, but also other metal products were forged in the same way, and not only in Japan. Making, for example, flat knives from unnecessary pipes or twisted rods of metal flattening methods was a common practice in the early Middle Ages. Yes, katanas could be made over several months with incredible care and beauty, hence the works of art that are still exhibited in museums and sold for huge sums of money. However, they were made only for shoguns and warlords, and rather to emphasize status than for actual battles. And for ordinary warriors, katanas were produced quickly and far from perfect quality. In the 14th-15th century, Japan was shaken by constant wars and strife, which required a lot of, let's not even be afraid of this word, throwaway weapons. Because of this, there is a great deal of historical evidence that in battle, katanas were easily bent, crumbled, and nicked. Sometimes the opponents even had to part ways by mutual agreement and right their weapons. In Budo Shoshinshu, there was an admonition for this case. If there is a sword fight, you should wear armor and a helmet. The blade of the sword can bend. Then you need to change weapons. Agreed, in the period of mass wars, no one would not conjure up swords for 1,000 days. So in the mass of Japanese weapons were as utilitarian, mediocre in quality, and discreet as in the rest of the world. Valuable and luxurious katanas are an exception rather than a rule, which we can see today at exhibitions and in private collections. Myth 4 and the last one. The katana is a weapon of mass destruction, which was used in absolutely all wars in Japan. How could it be otherwise? Because in the movies, all Japanese troops are equipped with dashing katanas. In fact, the truth is that the katana is practically useless against an enemy in armor, as we have already found out that it does not cut or even damage metal, but rather crumbles itself, and the warrior will remain unarmed. Therefore, katanas were more often used as status sign of a samurai dueling weapon, a weapon against unarmed opponents, for example, when massacring peasants or raiding a rebellious monastery. What is the fate of the katana? At the end of the 19th century in Japan, a decree was issued banning the carrying of swords. Of course, weapon enthusiasts cheated the law. They made disguised swords, similar in design to Western sword canes, or scabbards imitating a staff made of wood. Nevertheless, the European officers of the colonial troops came across Eastern blades, which significantly won in comparison with the frankly bad European sabers of that period. In Europe, everything has long been decided by firearms and explosives, and therefore the sabers were stamped only for the sake of distraction. Admiring katanas, officers bought them en masse and boasted about them to their friends. As a result, by the beginning of World War II, the opinion about the superiority of Japanese cold weapons became generally accepted. After the war, the enterprising Japanese made samurai a brand for export and began to produce accessories for the rest of the world. This is how katanas came out en masse, and the wars that once carried them became the heroes of our favorite cartoons and movies. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell so you don't miss new exciting videos. See you in the next video, where we will continue to reveal the secrets of the gun world. See you soon.